They called it the Sultan's paradise, but for the women inside, it was a golden prison, ruled by fear, silence, and desire. Here, a single mistake could cost you your life, and the cruelest laws of all were the ones whispered after dark. This is the untold story of the Ottoman Harem, where power, beauty, and death slept under the same roof. They called it the most beautiful prison on earth. A palace of gold, guarded by silence, and ruled by one man, the Sultan. Inside, hundreds of women lived behind locked gates, hidden from the world. To outsiders, the Ottoman harem looked like paradise. Silk pillows, perfume in the air, laughter echoing through marble halls. But those who lived inside knew the truth. Every breath had a price. The women came from everywhere. Greece, Persia, the Balkans, the Caucasus. Some were slaves, others gifts from foreign rulers. But once they entered the harem, their old names were erased. Their only purpose was to serve the Sultan's pleasure. Every night, they waited. At sunset, a servant would walk the corridor carrying a single candle. He would stop at one door, just one. That woman would be chosen to spend the night with the Sultan. The rest would bow their heads in silence, pretending not to envy her, because being chosen could mean power or destruction. There were rules, cruel, strange, and absolute. No woman could speak the Sultan's name. None could meet his eyes unless invited. And if one was caught whispering to a guard or showing affection to anyone but him, she vanished before sunrise. No screams, no grave, just silence. The harem had its own ruler too, the Kızlar Ağası, the black eunuch who enforced every command. He was both protector and executioner. One word from him could raise a girl to luxury or send her to the shadows forever. And then came the law of purity. If a woman failed to please the Sultan, she was sent to the old palace, a place where forgotten concubines aged in silence, waiting for death. There, they said, even time forgot to move. But inside this golden prison, power still burned. Some women learned to twist the rules, to rise from slave to queen, and every victory came at the cost of another woman's fall. One night, a new girl arrived, pale skin, terrified eyes. She didn't yet understand where she was. The others watched her from the shadows, whispering to one another, "Will she survive?" For 3 days, no one spoke to her. On the 4th night, she found a note beneath her pillow. Just one line, "If the Sultan desires you, never look him in the eyes." She didn't know what it meant, but she would learn soon, because in the Sultan's harem, beauty was a weapon, and love was the most dangerous crime of all. When night fell over the palace, the harem turned silent. No laughter, no whispers, only the sound of silk against marble floors as the women waited, each one hoping, fearing, praying not to be chosen. Because inside the Sultan's golden palace, the bedroom was not a place of love. It was a throne room, and what happened inside decided who lived, who rose, and who disappeared. The rules of the harem were unlike any other laws in the empire. They were not written on paper. They were passed down in whispers, from one terrified woman to another. And the first rule was simple. Only the Sultan may choose. No woman could request him. No one could even hint at desire. If a concubine was seen trying to attract his attention, with a glance, a word, even a smile, she was punished. Some were banished to the old palace, others were never seen again. The second rule, purity belongs to the Sultan. Every girl brought to the harem was examined, watched, and trained. They were taught how to walk, how to bow, how to breathe in front of him. Their voices had to be soft, their eyes lowered, their hearts silent. Because if the Sultan suspected even a trace of affection toward another man, it was death. And then came the most feared law, the law of silence. Whatever happened in the Sultan's chamber could never be spoken. Not to servants, not to friends, not even to other concubines. The walls had ears, even the shadows carried secrets to the throne. But within these cruel rules, power still existed, for those brave enough to use it. If a woman pleased the Sultan, even once, she could rise above hundreds. She could gain her own chambers, her own servants, her own wealth, and if she bore him a son, she became untouchable, a mother of a prince. That's how women like Hurrem Sultan rose from slavery to the throne, using the same laws that once enslaved them. But every step upward meant someone else had to fall. Jealousy burned like fire in those marble corridors. Poisoned tea, whispered betrayals, silent deaths. They were as common as perfume. One night, the new girl, the one with the green eyes, was chosen. The candle outside her door flickered, and every gaze turned toward her. Her heart pounded. She remembered the note under her pillow. If the Sultan desires you, never look him in the eyes. When she entered his chamber, the air felt heavy. Gold, incense, silence. He spoke no words, only gestures, and in that moment, she realized what every woman in that palace already knew. The Sultan's gaze was both a blessing and a sentence. Inside the harem, power was earned not with beauty, but with obedience and survival. By the time the green-eyed girl left the Sultan's chamber, the harem had already changed. Whispers followed her down the corridor. Soft, poisonous, hungry. Some envied her, some feared her, and a few quietly began plotting her fall. Her name was Leila, but in the harem, names meant nothing. A woman was only as valuable as the Sultan's memory of her. If he forgot her, she was finished. For 3 nights after her summons, the candle outside her door stayed dark. That was the test. If the Sultan never called again, she would fade into the crowd like hundreds before her. But if he called twice, everything changed. On the 4th night, the servant came again, carrying that single flickering candle. It stopped at her door. Every head turned. Every smile vanished. The harem now had a favorite, but power here was a double-edged blade. The other women began to circle her, with compliments, gifts, and hidden daggers. The old concubines smiled sweetly while slipping rumors into the ears of the eunuchs. The harem's real war wasn't fought with swords. It was fought with words, glances, and silence. That's when the Valide Sultan, the Sultan's mother, took notice. She was the true ruler of the harem, the shadow behind the throne. No woman could approach the Sultan without her approval. And when she called for Leila, every heartbeat in the corridor froze. The Valide studied her like a hawk studies its prey. "You have beauty," she said. "But beauty is a flame. It burns fast." Then she leaned closer and whispered, "If you wish to survive here, learn to be smoke." From that day, Leila changed. She stopped speaking unless spoken to. She watched everything: who the Sultan favored, which servant carried which tray, which girl cried at night. She learned the rhythm of power, the hidden language of the palace. When the Sultan next summoned her, she did not tremble. She listened. She adapted, and soon she began to shape the Sultan's moods, softening his anger, planting thoughts like seeds. Without ever breaking a single rule, she was bending them all. The other concubines called her the Queen of Shadows, half in awe, half in fear, because somehow this quiet girl from nowhere was now influencing the most powerful man in the empire. But power always demanded payment. And in the harem, every favor had a price written in silence and blood. One night, as Leila stood by the window overlooking the Bosphorus, a soft knock came at her door. When she opened it, a folded note lay on the floor. No name, no signature, just one line written in trembling ink. "He will not love you. He never loves anyone." Leila stared at the note for a long time. Then she smiled, not with joy, but with understanding, she finally knew the truth of the harem. Love was weakness, and she was done being weak. The harem was never quiet for long. Behind every curtain, behind every smile, someone was always plotting. And the higher Leila rose, the more enemies she gained. She had become the Sultan's favorite, the woman who could calm his rage and command his attention with a single glance. But in the harem, favor was more dangerous than hatred. The others watched her in silence, pretending to serve her tea and bow with respect. But whispers spread faster than perfume. They say she poisoned the last favorite. They say the Valide Sultan protects her. They say she'll be queen next. Even the walls began to feel heavy with secrets. One evening, a new girl arrived, young, flawless, and dangerously bold. Her name was Safia. She wasn't afraid of Leila's shadow. She smiled at her like a rival who already knew how the story would end. And within days, the Sultan's candle appeared outside Safia's door. For the first time, Leila felt fear. She had built her power carefully, silently. But now she saw how quickly it could vanish. With a single night, a single whisper, and the harem had no mercy for the forgotten. That night, Leila went to the Valide Sultan. She bowed low and said nothing. The Valide smiled faintly, as if she had been expecting her. "Do not fight her with beauty," she said. "Beauty fades. Use what she does not see." Fear. The next day, rumors began to twist like smoke. Safia was seen speaking to a guard. A servant claimed she had written a secret letter, and by sunset, the Kızlar Ağası, the black eunuch, was sent to search her chambers. What they found was never revealed. But the next morning, Safia's room was empty. Her silk clothes were gone. Her name was erased from the records. Some said she was sent to the old palace. Others whispered she was strangled before dawn. Leila never asked. She didn't need to. When the Sultan summoned her again, he spoke softly, his eyes distant. "Do you think I am a cruel man, Leila?" he asked. She paused, then answered, "Cruelty is the only way to rule a world built on desire." He smiled faintly. And that was enough. The candle outside her door returned. Her power was safe. For now. But that night, as the palace slept, Leila couldn't close her eyes. Somewhere in the corridors, she could swear she heard soft footsteps, the faint rustle of silk, and a woman's whisper carried by the wind, "You will be next." For the first time since she entered the harem, Leila felt something she thought she had killed long ago: fear. Because in the Sultan's harem, betrayal was not a mistake. It was the only way to survive. Power had always belonged to the Sultan, but somewhere between passion and paranoia, he began to lose it. And everyone knew who had taken it. Leila, the woman who once trembled at his gaze, now whispered in his ear like a shadow that ruled from behind the throne. She did not raise her voice, yet her words became law. She did not wear a crown, yet every concubine bowed when she passed. But in the palace, power was never free. The Sultan had grown suspicious of everyone, his viziers, his guards, even his own sons. Each night he summoned Leila not for pleasure but for counsel, and as the empire bled at its borders, she became his only truth. At first, Leila thought she had won. She had survived the harem, defeated her rivals, and turned fear into influence. But the more she spoke, the more she saw what the crown had done to him. The Sultan no longer trusted anyone. He dreamed of betrayal, smelled poison in his tea, and saw ghosts in his mirrors. One evening, he asked her in a trembling voice, "Do you believe any of them love me, Leila?" She stayed silent, because she knew the truth. No one loved the Sultan, not the wives, not the eunuchs, not the slaves who bowed at his feet. They all feared him. Even she did, but she also knew something else. The Sultan feared her more than anyone. As his paranoia grew, so did his cruelty. He ordered the execution of a concubine for speaking out of turn. He banished his own son to the far provinces for disobedience. The palace that once shimmered with gold was now haunted by silence and suspicion, and every whisper echoed back to one name: Leila. Some called her a witch. Others said she bewitched the Sultan's mind with forbidden charms. But the truth was simpler. She understood him too well. She had become the mirror he couldn't destroy. One night, the Valide Sultan called her again. "You've done what no woman has done before," she said coldly. "You've made the Sultan bow to you. But remember this, every man who bows eventually looks up." Leila understood. Power never lasted, but she wasn't ready to fall. Not yet. That night, she returned to her chambers and found a dagger on her bed. It was wrapped in silk, the Sultan's seal pressed in wax on the handle. No note, no message, just the weapon. Was it a warning or an invitation? Leila held the blade in her hand, her reflection trembling in its edge, and for the first time she whispered to herself, "If love is a curse, then let me be the one who casts it." Outside, thunder rolled over Topkapi Palace. Inside, the Sultan dreamed of betrayal. Neither knew that by dawn their fates would be bound forever by blood. By the time dawn rose over Istanbul, the palace no longer felt alive. The gold had dulled, the marble was cold, and in the heart of Topkapi, where power once whispered behind silk curtains, the harem was drowning in silence. The Sultan had changed. He no longer held court, no longer laughed, no longer trusted the world beyond his chambers. His eyes were hollow, his voice distant. He saw enemies in every shadow. And perhaps he was right, because behind him, even the women who once worshipped him now plotted his end. The empire was rotting from within, and at its center stood Leila, the woman everyone feared, and no one truly knew. They called her the Sultan's curse. Some said she bewitched him. Others swore she poisoned his soul with her ambition. But the truth was simpler. The harem's cruelty had turned her into exactly what it was designed to create: a woman who could only survive by destroying others. And now, even she was trapped. One night, the Sultan summoned her again. But this time, the candle outside her door burned black with smoke. When she entered, he sat alone in the dark. No guards, no servants, just him and the dagger he had once sent her. He looked at her for a long time. "You've taken everything from me," he said quietly. "Even my peace." Leila stepped closer, her voice calm. "You gave me nothing but chains. I learned to wear them like jewels." He smiled faintly. The first smile in weeks. Then he whispered, "Then, tonight, let us both be free." The next morning, the Sultan was found lifeless on the floor of his chamber, the dagger in his chest. No one knew who killed him. Some said Leila struck first. Others claimed he ended his own torment. But Leila was gone, vanished. No guards saw her leave. No body was ever found. Only her silk veil remained, folded neatly beside the throne. The Valide Sultan ordered the harem sealed that same night. The concubines were sent away, the eunuchs dismissed, the doors locked. For centuries, it had been a world of desire, fear, and silent power. Now, it became a tomb of ghosts. Years later, when the empire began to crumble, travelers spoke of a strange woman who appeared in the streets of Istanbul, veiled, graceful, her eyes green as emeralds. They said she moved like royalty, though she wore rags, and when asked who she was, she only smiled and whispered, "Once I ruled a world of gold. Now I rule my silence." They called her the Queen of Shadows, and thus ended the cruel reign of the Ottoman Harem, not with a rebellion, but with a whisper that said even the strongest cage cannot hold a woman who learns to master her fear.